Welcome everyone to D-Day Squadron's broadcast. Unfortunately, we could not go live due to technical difficulties, but we still wanted to participate with you, create a recording of our 85th anniversary of the legendary DC-3. My name is Lindsay Costabile with the D-Day Squadron. So welcome. And I want to welcome all of our cast and crew of the Mighty 15 that flew to Normandy, as well as those that jumped out of the C-47s in Normandy, as among other places around the world. We're very excited to have everyone here with us as we end 2020 on a good note and celebrating our greatest generation that has ever lived. Just a few items that I wanted to share prior to us getting started. This is a celebration of a legendary DC-3, but it is an opportunity for these crew members to share the stories of Normandy among some other key points and moments and memories that they'll be bringing forward. I did want to share an update to our film, Into Flight Once More, that is narrated by award-winning Gary Sinise and philanthropist, as well as produced by Sound Off Films. We're very excited. It'll be released in 2021. We are working on locations as safely as we can to where those will be screened publicly and also privately for many of our donors. We do have gifts and awards to give out. So for those that would like a chance to win subscriptions to Flying Magazine, the signed book, Every Reason to Fail, The Unlikely Story of Miss Montana by author and pilot Brian Douglas, as well as some special D-Day Squadron packages. Google form was provided. And so when you fill those out, we will be choosing those awards into the new year. Very exciting. Another thing, we have launched our Young Historians program. So we just had calls over the last couple of weeks with our young historians interviewing World War II veterans. Very exciting. And their work has been featured all around and will be continued to feature on our social media platforms. A big thank you to our moderator today, Julie Boatman, the editor-in-chief for Flying Magazine, because she is one of our first contributors to the Young Historians program. Very, very, very exciting. Before I turn everything over to a few other folks that have some things to say, I did want to share this celebratory video that is a compilation of all of the various crews that have provided and submitted footage and remarks about the 85 years of the DC-3.
Hi, Art Dykstra, one of the crew members, Miss Montana. Happy 85th birthday to the Douglas Racer.
And I'm Brian Douglas, another of the pilots. Happy birthday, DC-3. You always treated us well.
I'm Keely Flato. I'm a volunteer with the Museum of Mountain Flying. I'm also a photographer. Happy birthday to the DC-3. My inspiration every day, all day.
For me, if you ask any pilot, it's got to be one of the top three aircraft that you'd want to fly. And, you know, as Eisenhower said, one of the four things that perhaps we wouldn't have won the war without. And, you know, not only is it a war-winning machine, it's one of the planes that started commercial aviation as we know it.
And for me, 85 years old, that design looks as fresh today as what it did so long ago. And it's a pleasure to fly, it's a pleasure to look at, and I hope I look the same, 85 years old.
Hi, my name is Pat Collins. I'm one of the gophers on the Miss Montana to Normandy project. Happy birthday to the DC-3s. Love the round engines.
Happy birthday to one of the greatest airplanes ever made. It's a well-deserved place in history. And I love working with you. You're beautiful.
All right, happy birthday to the Miss Montana, the DC-3. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Happy birthday to Miss Montana, my favorite DC-3. Working on you has been the most rewarding thing in my life.
My name is Cindy Folks. I was here on Rosie the Riveter Day, and I want to wish her a happy 5th birthday.
Happy 85th birthday to the DC-3.
My name is Paul Baisley, and this is coming to you from the hangars of Aeromantle International out in Aurora, Oregon. I wanted to wish the Douglas DC-3, or the C-47, or the Dakota, or the Goonie Bird, whatever you call her, a very happy 85th birthday. Well, we look forward to celebrating the 90th birthday and indeed the 100th birthday with many more examples of the type flying. Happy birthday, old girl.
I'm Barb Combrick, and I'm just here to wish Miss Montana happy 85th birthday.
This is the D-Day doll. Built in 1943, it was on its way to Europe, participated in the operations on D-Day, dropped 2 glider missions and a paratroop mission. In 2019, it returned to Normandy and participated in the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Getting prepared for a flight here on December 5th, 2020 at Riverside, California. Mike Lindgren, one of our crew chiefs on this mission, is up oiling up the airplane, getting ready to go.
I'm the president of the Goonie Bird Group here in Paso Robles, California, and we own and operate Betsy's Biscuit Bomber, November 470 Juliet, vintage C-47. This is our captain and chief pilot, Sherman Smoot.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is also the famous Douglas DC-3, and we'd like to wish Douglas a happy 85th anniversary of
Building the greatest airplane ever.
Exactly. It is the greatest airplane ever. It ferried a lot of troops, and just happy birthday.
And it kept us alive, and we appreciate it.
Yep.
Hello, everybody. It's Jeff Kaufman here from the Spirit of Bonovia. On behalf of the entire crew, we'd like you to join us in wishing the DC-3 a very happy 85th birthday. For 85 years, this airplane has been doing incredible things. Successful missions in the military, in war, in peace, cargo, transport, you name it, this airplane's done it. So from all of us, to you, you beautiful DC-3, you aluminum maiden, you beautiful Goonie Bird, very happy 85th birthday. And may you continue to keep turning eyes and ears skyward for another 85 years. Happy birthday. We love you, DC-3.
Hello everyone, it's been a bit of a strange year. I bet in their 85 years the DC-3 hasn't seen anything quite like this year. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. And from happenstance in Coventry, happy birthday, DC-3.
The whole Flaybob family, we want to congratulate you on 85 years of being an icon in aviation. And with the help of the DC-3 Society, we're wishing you another 85 more years of blue sky, sunshine, tailwinds, and happy landings. Congratulations.
All right, so what a great celebration. And with our celebrations and our commemorations, there is a very special memorial celebration we wanted to share on this recording of our broadcast today. So I want to turn it over to Rod Moyer with Dynamic Aviation's Miss Virginia.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rod, and as many of you are aware, back in November, on November 27th, our friend Carl Stoltzfus passed away, the founder of Dynamic Aviation. And because of that, and because of this event today, Lindsay just asked me to mention just one or two things and make it just a few comments, brief comments about him. Carl was a big man. He had a big heart and was a big part of the lives of many people. He leaves a big hole. And as I've looked back over his life and the legacy he leaves, there are two quotes that he used to call mind doodles. He used to come up with quotes and write them down, and he had a book of all of his mind doodles. In this book, there were two of them that I felt exemplified him quite well. The first one was, whatever you do, do it well. And the second one was, not knowing what I'm doing does not keep me from getting it done. And for those of us who knew him, who worked with him, who worked for him, we saw those two quotes lived out quite frequently and in many different ways. From time to time, he didn't always know how or to be able to explain why he wanted to carry out certain jobs or certain actions, but intuitively, he would know it was the right thing to do. So with that, we would move forward, we would do it. And oftentimes it would become clear why this was the right decision. And we most recently saw it demonstrated the best in the purchase of Columbine 2, when he purchased President Eisenhower's former Air Force One. We saw in that decision his determination to do something that he couldn't quite explain at the time, but he knew it was the right thing. We saw it in the direction that he provided to the guys that are in the middle of the restoration process. We saw it in the workmanship he insisted on in the refurbishment of Miss Virginia, and in the many ways he was involved in the day-to-day activities of the company. It showed in the many deep relationships as well that he had with people throughout the industry, both here in the US and abroad. Doing it well also drove his approach to dynamics involvement in the D-Day Squadron and what we were involved with in 2019, namely the trip to Europe. He was concerned about the safety and the well-being of his crew, as well as the other aircraft that made up the D-Day Squadron. And so if a need arose, he was quick to look for a way that he could help, a spare part he could offer, or a mechanic that he could loan. Some of you were beneficiaries of that. One major concern that he shared with all of us was the North Atlantic crossing and some of the logistical hurdles having to do with that. So when Eric approached us about options at providing some form of a support plane for the squadron, Carl, along with the support of his son, Michael, who's Dynamics president and CEO, jumped at the opportunity to help provide a King Air. And so they were glad to do this, knowing that it brought, at a minimum, much needed peace of mind. Many of us have benefited in one fashion or another through our relationship with Carl, and I wanted to offer a word of gratitude to all of you, especially those of you that are making up a part of this live stream. A word of gratitude to you for being a part of that relationship. Each one of you meant a lot to him, and that relationship and legacy were important to him, and you were a large part of that. So thank you, and I just appreciate each one of you guys, and just thank you, Lindsay, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rod, for sharing your thoughts, and our thoughts are with you and family. And Carl was very special to us. So appreciate you. Without further ado, I'd like to turn the show over to Julie Boatman with Flying Magazine. Thank you so much for being here, partnering with us, supporting us all the way, always helping to share our news and bring awareness of the D-Day Squadron. So Julie, the show is you, my friends. All you.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of this 85th birthday celebration of the DC-3, which has been near to my heart for the better part of 20 years now. So not very long in the whole space of time of the airplane's history, but certainly a big chunk of my life. And as Rod was talking about sharing his part of the story of last year, I've been reflecting myself upon 18 months ago when we were all in Duxford and in Normandy, many of us together. We made the trip over. We wouldn't want to be anywhere else than to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Normandy invasion and support and honor, first and foremost, those who gave all, those young men who flew, the missions that we were commemorating those who jumped, but also to honor the incredible monumental effort that the D-Day Squadron put together in order to make that crossing. And I've not made an Atlantic crossing myself, except on the airlines. Unfortunately, it's still on my bucket list. But to talk with folks about what that meant logistically, and but that commitment to come together to make that all happen, was something that drove me to want to be there and report on the story for flying. And we did so last fall, and gave hopefully a little bit of illumination to what had happened. But I want to take the opportunity here, now that everybody's had a chance to probably sit at home and reflect a whole lot more than we ever expected to in 2020. Maybe not as much flying and not as many of the air shows and things that we'd all hoped to do, but be able to still come together and celebrate not only the airplane itself, but more importantly, the people who were involved in building it, in designing it, in maintaining it, and of course, those who flew and those who served in it. So I'd like to call upon each of the crew to share some special memories. And I know that everybody's got their own story. So if the question that I ask in specifically to you isn't the one that's in mind for you to answer, you can say, Julie, I'm going to punt that and answer this one instead. But just based on my knowledge of the cruise and what you've experienced, I'd like to start with Steve Rose with D-Day Doll. And Steve, I know we saw each other when we were over in Europe. Do you want to pull out a favorite memory from preparing for that trip? What was the preparation? What ended up being some of the most important preparation that you did for that big expedition across the pond?
Well, the biggest thing is the D-Day Doll was basically a VFR only airplane when we started. So we needed to start basically from scratch. Eric's people put together everything that required. So we had to get a GPS, we had to get, flight instruments, spare parts, for everything we thought we possibly could use. And the paint job was pretty poor. And so we had to get that painted, and it was over Waldo and his brother Nando were prepping in the rain and the wind, trying to get that thing done before we got over there. So the biggest thing was just trying to, so many balls in the air, trying to juggle just to make sure that somebody, oh, there's a doll. So, basically taking it from a VFR only airplane to an IFR qualified airplane with the proper parts and spares. And, Rod already mentioned it. We were probably the only crew that didn't have a qualified mechanic on board. So thank Rod and Carl, obviously, and Sam Lehman for helping us out with phase checks and stuff. So, I mean, our concern was we're just a little tiny unit, and raising the money and getting parts, it was really an all-encompassing task. And we're really proud of this little wing that able to put it all together.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, that's it, and that tells a lot of the story, because I know from the aircraft that both I've flown and been a chance to had a chance to see, you're not typically doing hard IFR in these aircraft, even though they were used, obviously in very serious commercial operations for decades and still are, but typically these aircraft in the United States are currently operating as air show queens, right? And and barely seeing a drop of rain, and in fact avoiding that because they're not necessarily the most watertight cockpits. If
And,
you're
you
used
know, most of our air shows here in Southern California, you know, they're 5 minutes away. So we didn't even get very long transits.
Sure, sure. That's incredible. Well, I know that from the trip across and from talking with some other folks, I'll move on so that we can talk to some Doug Rosendahl from That's All Brother. I know that you shared some thoughts immediately upon getting into Scotland. You and I talked on the phone, and you shared some immediate thoughts about that journey across and what that meant to you. Do you want to jump in and share with our listeners what you shared with me at that point?
Well, I don't recall exactly what I shared with you at that point, but I said from the outset, I really wasn't that concerned about flying a DC-3 across the North Atlantic. You know, I flew DC-3s for going on 30 years now, hauling chickens and car parts and FedEx and UPS. So I'm quite familiar with what the capability of the airplane was. My concern from the outset was, you know, we're going to take 15 airplanes and upwards of 75 people, all of them highly motivated Type A people, and put them under a lot of pressure for a long period of time. And it was really kind of a psychological experiment. And thanks to the leadership of the D-Day Squadron, Eric Zipkin and Kevin Riley, they set a tone and demonstrated a quiet but confident leadership style that kept all the egos and the pressure under control. And, you know, really it was a very effortless trip. As you're going across the North Atlantic, mercifully, there were clouds underneath us most of the way. So we didn't have to look down at that angry water. And I was just imagining those were Iowa cornfields down there that were warm and green. But, and, you know, when we talked about rafts and immersion suits, I said, I'd just as soon have a 9mm because the result was the same and quicker. But Kevin brought the Coast Guard knowledge. Kevin Riley came in from the Coast Guard and was our logistics and liaison support person. And, you know, he showed a lot of video and data that this DC-3 was a fairly seaworthy airplane. And that if we did get in the water and we did get into our raft, he assured us that the Coast Guard would pick us up. So he brought a lot of confidence to the thing. So the quality of leadership allayed a lot of those concerns, and it was effortless. I mean, the crossing was really there was some, you know, you paying attention, but it was not difficult at all.
Fantastic. Well, I will move on down the list. Barry with Virginia Ann. I've got my next question for you, and if you guys are starting to pick up I'm going with a timeline theme, so you may anticipate the next question, and that has to do with when you arrived at and finally got into Duxford and started making the practice runs that you did and flying the airplanes around the south of England. What was that like for you as pilots to see and have the airplane back in that theater of operation that perhaps, you know, you'd never seen before, and you're finally getting a chance to put the airplanes back in that role?
Well, I think it was my son that coined the phrase "flying with ghosts." And it's like every time we jump on that airplane, especially over there, you couldn't help but wonder, think about, you know, what it was like 75 years ago. What, you know, for us, it was just, it was a lot of fun. Even the crossing, you know, it's like Doug was saying, but, you know, it's hard to imagine those guys leaving Goose Bay not knowing what the weather was. I mean, we first checked the weather. One point in time, there was like a 50-knot wind out of the wrong direction there. You know, 75 years ago, those guys would have just taken off and they'd had to deal with it. And not all of them made it, of course. And so when we arrived over there in Duxford, we first stopped off in Scotland, and like a lot of spare parts were brought along, and along with a couple others, we decided to leave our entire spare tire there in Scotland. And of course, that's why we got a flat tire in Duxford. So we had to drive back there and go get it. But so yeah, as far as some of those flights out of Duxford, you know, the Virginia Ann, although she played a pretty significant role along with so many of these other airplanes on D-Day, but you know, she is no longer equipped to handle jumpers. So a lot of the guys that were flying out of Duxford were preparing and hauling jumpers, which we weren't able to do. But unfortunately, our flat tire, there was a day's event. They went over to, what was the name of that museum they went to? Shuttlesworth. Yeah, we missed the flight to Shuttlesworth, unfortunately. So we did it by car a few days later. But yeah, no, it's you know, we got to fly on D-Day, which was something that Eric pulled a rabbit out of his hat. And because all of us, when we first started going over there, we knew that the opportunity to fly on D-Day wasn't going to happen because, you know, when you get those heads of state around there, you're no longer allowed to fly over their heads. Well, somehow Eric pulled it off, and we were able to fly on D-Day, and so we're flying around over there for, I don't know, a couple hours. But it's like I said, it's really hard not to think about who was in that airplane, and we were all having fun time. I don't know what, you know, 75 years ago, those guys probably had a different thought in their head when they were getting ready to jump out in the dark. It's hard to believe, and it's like I said, we call it flying with ghosts, but that's exactly, every time we jump in that airplane, you can't help but wonder, you know, who was in that thing and what their time was like.
Absolutely, absolutely. And well, you know, unfortunately, we still have incredibly, you know, walking amongst us, a number of veterans, although the numbers get smaller and smaller every year. So, you know, I know that, you know, we were walking around Duxford and talking to folks and seeing some of the men who had been on the aircraft back in the day. That was, you know, by far and away the most poignant thing, and all of the ghosts that were accompanying them, you know, all of their comrades and brothers in arms who were no longer with us for one reason or another. So I will move on to Bill with Pan Am and ask you what I know that each of you, you know, got a chance to spend some time flying veterans during and talking with them during this whole experience, whether it was stateside getting ready or in England or in Normandy or afterwards. What was your most memorable experience as far as some of the veterans that you met?
Yeah, I'd say certainly the most memorable flight we had with a veteran on this trip was with David Hamilton, Colonel Hamilton, who was is the last surviving Pathfinder pilot. And we had the good fortune to have him on our airplane for the Channel crossing. And that was really special. I happened to have the right seat that day, and Gene was flying, Gene Bizzetti. And so I gladly gave up my seat for the colonel to have him come up there and sit and just take a look and watch that big smile on his face. We offered him the controls. And he said, that's okay. I don't need, there you go. There's that picture. That looks like his original uniform. It certainly fits. And he is a fit, happy, you know, great old man acting like a young man. And he just had a big grin on his face, and he just sat there and said, you know, the last time I did this, it was dark and they were trying to kill me. So you got to appreciate that. So I'd say that's my enduring memory of, of having a vet on board. I have another really kind of special memory, certainly for me, and it's a contrasting set of memories because I was in Normandy for the 25th anniversary of D-Day in 1969 as a kid, 12 years old. That came about because my dad, who was a World War II vet, although he was in the Pacific, not in the European theater, took myself and my middle brother, three brothers in the family. The younger one was too young, and the girls were offered a trip to Europe later on. But so it was myself and my younger brother, who was 8. We were over there together, and it was really an interesting contrast then, because as I look back on it, and we share these memories because he came back over last summer and joined me in Duxford. and got a ride on the airplane going over into France. It was really, really special for us to remember remember those times, from 50 years ago. So that memory from 1969 was of a whole different experience. It was a very solemn, reverent sort of thing. It was really almost none of the pageantry. There were no parades that I recall anyway, no reenactors, there were no military vehicles, certainly no air show. There were no flybys, no anything. It was just kind of a quiet, solemn affair. And contrast that with what we experienced this time. And everyone remembers, all the, of course, the paratroopers and the reenactors, thousands of reenactors, all these beautifully restored military vehicles. Of course, the air show. I mean, we put up 13 airplanes, 13 C-47s that day. And we were just a small part of a big air show. And of course, the thousands of people on the ground with 2 presidents down there, France and the US. It was amazing. And to me, that was very significant because it indicates a trend. I hope it's a trend anyway, in terms of historical awareness and things, at least in France, that they're never going to forget this. If it went from what it was in 1969 to what it is today for the 75th, I think it's more than maybe just an awareness that we're starting to lose, all the eyewitnesses and all the participants, unfortunately. I think it was maybe more than that. I think it just has to do with I'd like to think a national awareness, maybe international awareness on the part of the French and Europeans. And that really felt good to see that. And I hope we can take some lessons from that, back in our country and maybe do a little bit better job of teaching history, especially World War II history. And D-Day is a big part of that. So I guess, that's my biggest overall takeaway from this whole thing was the experience of 1969 as a 12-year-old who dreamed of being a pilot someday. Never, impossibly, it was not even a conceivable idea to come back, for the 75th anniversary in 50 years to fly a C-47 over the beach. So it was pretty special.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's incredible. What an awesome connection to make. And you give me a good segue to talk about the parachute drop. And one of the things that was a surprise to me was one of the most powerful things that we were able to do was, we were on the ground and positioned ourselves in center view for the drop that they did on the 5th. And we literally sat in the field as the waves of folks came across and did the parachute drop into the field over our heads. And, it was silent, right? Except for the aircraft, and then, seeing them all drop around us. I mean, it was one of the most moving things. I didn't anticipate that would be, one of the most powerful memories, but that gives me an opening to call up on, we have 2 paratroopers with us who jumped during this awesome occasion. And I'll just start with CJ. Would you talk about the preparation that you made, CJ, in order to get ready to make that jump and to commemorate such an incredible moment in history?
I'll do my best because I played a different role. My mission was to document the 75th anniversary and also document Tom Rice, who's a World War II paratrooper at 97 years old. So that really was my focus. And in order to accomplish that, that's when I had decided to train and prepare myself for that, to get from that perspective. Little did I know, and this is a huge thank you to everyone here, because I could not have accomplished that without D-Day Doll, Betsy's Biscuit Bomber, the D-Day Squadron. There was no way, Drag-A-Moot. And so I guess if you're asking that preparation, as I said, I had to train to become, earn my wings, and so many different people were involved in that journey to get there. And it's interesting because you have a little bit of a pity party, and I'm going to explain that in the sense of you're so dedicated to get this done, and you really believe that your struggles are your own. You see what I mean? And then you hear Captain Rhodes talk about all that they had to do to accomplish to get there. I know damn well that everyone else had their struggles too, but they're so committed in the mission. And I just think it's awesome. So hopefully that answered your question. In order to do that, I can get into more detail, but I'd like to give Duncan an opportunity to speak as well.
Yeah, if you could give Darren that.
Darren,
And Darren, over to
Debbie,
you.
on audio.
Can we
got
hear
me good
you?
on sound?
Yep.
All right. Again, one, thanks for the opportunity to share the story a little bit from a little bit different lens of perspective that CJ has. The 75th anniversary was my third time in Normandy, both as an active duty paratrooper and two as a member of the Liberty Jump team. So being a part of the 75th was truly probably one of the most memorable experiences I've had in my airborne career. Been a paratrooper since 2010, and again, I can't think of any better event to honor our proud history and story tradition than participate in the 75th anniversary of D-Day. I've spoken to many paratroopers that have participated in previous events, to include having veterans like meeting, Jumpin' Jim Gavin and some of our great heroes of the airborne. But truly seeing and preparing to exit an aircraft on the 75th anniversary of D-Day. In particular, for me, the first operation we did over St. Germain de Verville as an Army Pathfinder, jumping the first drop zone used by the 101st Airborne Division to receive the main body of aircraft on the Day of Days was truly the most memorable jump of my life. It is no better place to observe a drop zone and observe parachutes, deploying in flight than from the door of a C-47. The DC-3 or the Goonie Bird, whatever you elect to call it, is truly the most iconic aircraft for the Army Airborne. And one, just to see it flying in and of itself is an amazing experience. But as I tell the active duty paratroopers here at Fort Bragg around the world, there's truly no greater experience. If you can fly on one, highly encourage it. But two, if you can see one in flight over these historic drop zones around Normandy and around, if you get to venture out into Holland or wherever the C-47 has graced the skies, it's truly an amazing experience.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. From there, one of the coolest things, and I know prior crew have talked about this, but I know that among the crews here, I believe Miss Montana, Brian, you participated in the flyover on D-Day itself that took place over all the heads of state and pulling that off. Do you want to share what that flyover was like? Because it sure looked incredible from the ground.
Sure, that was one of those, I suppose, 2 days where it was a little bit of a toss-up whether it was better to be on the ground or in the air. But of course, it was better to be in the air. But one of the great things about that, and I don't know if it was planned, was we got to orbit for about 2 hours out west of the cemetery. And I don't know about the rest of the folks, but every turn was a trip through history. We went down Utah Beach, past Point de Hawk, a little ways down Omaha Beach, and then back out into the water again. And you just had to pinch yourself. And here we were doing it in a flight of 13 DC-3s by invitation in a presidential TFR. It just didn't, I mean, who gets to do that? I don't know. I'll never do it again. But that was just one of those pinch yourself moments, and it meant a ton. I think all of us would say that, I guess that all of us would say that June 5th and 6th were the two most memorable days of the entire trip, but that's doesn't take away from all the other great days we had. And but those two were pretty special. I mean, that's what we went for, and have that cherry on top of doing the presidential flyby. Wow. Sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll go over to Nick with Betsy's Biscuit Bomber. Not only did you participate in the dropping of the troops, or at least the aircraft did, and I think you were there with Sherman and others, but you also had the chance to fly on to Berlin following the days in France. Do you want to talk about, you can talk about either of those experiences, actually, dropping the troops or going on to Berlin, or both?
Yeah, sure.
You'd like to share?
I'll just talk real briefly about, flying in Germany, or being in Germany, actually. I think one of the most memorable things for me, and one of the more surprising things for me from the trip was our experience at Wiesbaden. We went there and we spent a couple of days there. We had I think it'd be more of an open house than an air show there. But, on the second day we arrived there, they opened the Air Force Base up to the public, and they allowed us to show our airplanes to the service members that were based there, as well as their families and the local communities that support them. And it was really eye-opening to me. In Paso, our airplane's based at a warbird museum, and for a number of years we hosted what we considered fairly significant air shows. We got a lot of warbirds up from Chino in the Southern California area, and we worked hard to put on a really good show. And we would get 5,000 to 7,000 people that would show up. And when we showed up at Wiesbaden, we had 13 airplanes. We had a pretty minimal aerial display. We had some cool formation, and we had the candy drop, but it was a short segment of flying, and then 15 or 20 airplanes on the ground that you could walk around, but all of the same type. And yet I think they were talking about 40 or 42,000 people showed up. And so it was pretty amazing to, stand there. A couple times throughout the day, I went and stood and looked out the escape hatch of our airplane. And it was amazing just to see the C-47s lined up down the ramp and the people lined up down the ramp there to see them. And it was kind of twofold. It kind of showed me how fortunate we are in the United States to kind of have the access and the ability to warbirds and general aviation and everything, and how much more limited it is over there in Europe for them, but also how much they appreciated both what we did, but also what our troops did back in both World War II and during the Berlin Airlift, which is what we were commemorating there in Germany, and the airplane. What an amazing airplane it is, and what it had accomplished, in wartime, as well as a civilian support airplane for humanitarian efforts and everything else it's done.
Sure, absolutely. And I believe Colonel Gail Halverson, who was the candy bomber, and just an incredible ambassador for the heart and the soul of the United States, just celebrated 100th birthday, if I recall correctly. And it's amazing that he was able to be there and witness and also receive some of the heartfelt thanks from people who were children back then and now are no longer children, maybe still on their hearts. So hats off to Colonel Halverson, who's truly a saint among us. So thank you for sharing that. Now, as we got back home and reflect on what the big takeaways were from all this, I'll move on to Waldo with Flaybob Express and present to you the question: what was your biggest memory out of the D-Day event, and what did you take with you as something that you want to keep on doing, as a result of having been part of such an amazing effort?
Well, for me, the entire trip was great. I was just lucky to be part of the Flaybob Express crew. And also, being that a lot of the other airplanes who also attended the big event are local airplanes and good friends of mine. So it was definitely awesome, and it's hard to choose just one event that was my favorite, because the entire trip was a great experience for myself. One of the biggest things that sticks to me till this day was an unfortunate event that happened to us as a Flavov Express. On June 6th, we were supposed to fly with all the other airplanes, and we had some engine issues. It's actually had a bad carburetor on the left engine. So as everybody's lining up to go, we're firing up the engines, and left engine kept quitting. We tried and tried and tried, and finally just realized that it wasn't gonna stay running. So we sat there and watched all our guys just take off and kind of disappear into the sky, and that was definitely hit me pretty hard, because we worked so hard to get the airplane out there, and this was the main reason why we went out there. But at the end of the day, we just kept a positive, attitude. We did what we had to do to fix the airplane, get it back up in the air, and I believe 2 days later we catched up with the rest of the crew out in France. But yeah, that was one of the things I'll never forget. But like I said, at the end of the day, we were all grateful, and we talked about it. It didn't put us down that bad. We just moved ahead, finished the mission, and we got the airplane back home. And I would love to do it again. I don't know if it would have happened, but I still call it a once in a lifetime experience, but you never know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true, and that's something that we deal with as pilots. Is keeping that attitude that safety comes first, and we need to keep our focus on that, and just the sheer number of hours the fleet put on without having really too much in terms of maintenance issues. That was another huge takeaway that I had. It was 25 hours of flying and 25 back at least, on average, and other many hours and trips spent preparing and afterwards. So to have that, and to have what was at the time, between a 79 and 84-year-old airplane that that everybody was flying around is pretty incredible. So hats off to you and your crew for keeping focused on that, and being there, because being there was that's 95% of it, and we thank you for that. Now I'll go back to Eric, captain of Placid Lassie, and one of the organizers and driving force behind all of this, and ask you kind of the same question. What is the takeaway? I could also ask you about aircraft engines, but we'll leave that topic aside for now. But what was that main takeaway, and now what have the D-Day Squadron done in order to continue that legacy that was established with the Mighty 15 and carry that on into the future?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway, and it's been alluded to pretty much by everybody's spoken so far, is how everybody came together, both the members of the D-Day Squadron, but also all the communities that supported us through our home communities, the paratrooper community, the host communities. Everybody came together, both in celebrating sacrifice in the form of commemorating D-Day, but also in celebrating peace in the form of of the Berlin Airlift, and really the fact that everybody came together and came together so well. And that's kind of the thing that I'm most proud of, and really the thing that is most valuable to keep going as part of the D-Day Squadron, to really keep that togetherness of the organization, and really keep the DC-3 flying, because it is something that brings us together. And I think it's really so as an overall arching goal, that's what we're looking to do in the next chapter. Both from an expertise standpoint, we have kind of the best of the best from of DC-3 and C-47 operating group, and really to harvest that information and that expertise so that we can continue flying, not only for the 80th anniversary of D-Day, but for the 100th anniversary of D-Day. So there are many different pieces of the puzzle, setting up best practices for the operation of the aircraft, sharing of information, sharing of resources, and then that's really what I'm really hopeful that we can continue to build as the years go on, and as we can start coming back together face to face in the coming years.
Mm-hmm. Well, it takes a lot to keep these aircraft flying, as I think just about everyone who's been in contact with the DC-3 can attest to. And I know that there have been some really creative solutions to fundraising and outreach that the various operators and crews have done. I'm personally most interested to ask Jeff Kaufman with Spirit of Benovia. Do you have any of that Liberation wine left so that I can order some?
I believe there may be a case or two left with your name on it somewhere. I'm pretty sure.
Fantastic. Do you want to talk about some of the things that that you guys have that you're looking forward to, or make a reflection on the Normandy event?
No, there's just so many things I'd love to say, but primarily I want to echo a little bit what Eric says, and what we've all said about Eric and the extreme leadership that he's all over there, and making this thing a success. And since then, in the D-Day Squadron, the DC-3 Society, Eric, hats off to you. Really great job. And as I think about this and talking about outreach, one of the things that I noticed when we got into Europe, actually starting in Iceland, the knowledge that those folks and that the young kids had of the DC-3, or they have of the DC-3, and they know it. They know what it did in history, and when I look at to our country, that's something that we're missing here. And so I see this as the opportunity to teach these lessons about this generation, about this airplane, and the history to the younger part of our society here. It dawns on me that not only is this airplane 85 years old, that has done absolutely everything you could possibly imagine, and done it very well, including flying on one engine, right, Eric? But it continues to be an avenue that brings out the best in us, and allows us to share with the younger generation that which we've learned from this generation of airplanes and people. And Carl and Rod have done some things. They've got some great programs going with the youth. The Flaybob Express, obviously a wonderful organization that's going on over there. So airplane, it a new meaning going into its next 85 years. That's as an avenue to teach and to share. And I'm really proud to be part of it.
That's awesome. Thank you. Well, I also had a question regarding regarding pilot training, and I was going to ask that of Paul Baisley, but I think he's still stuck in traffic.
Probably.
I'll kind of throw it out to the group. I know that everybody does their own recurrent training for their crews, using the aircraft that you have, but if I were wanting to pursue a type rating in the DC-3, is that something that I can still do? I mean, is that possible? Who wants to take that one?
I think Doug could probably go to that one pretty handily.
Doug.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, that's a viable goal. There are a couple different ways you can get that. You can go somewhere and pay a lot of money, and in relatively short order for a lot of money, you can have the words DC-3 written on your pilot certificate. But a better way is to get involved with one of the 15 organizations that was represented and volunteer or participate and get the background and the time. Go spend some time in a Twin Beach or some other airplane and build a foundation. That's what we try to do at the CAF, is we try to recruit people and get them in small airplanes and teach them about old airplanes, teach them about round engines, and then walk them through the ranks. And so then, when you get a DC-3 type rating, not only do you have DC-3 on your pilot certificate, but you have the skills and the background and the expertise to operate the airplane both safely and professionally. And that's the real objective. And so that's the path that I would recommend and encourage, and put in a plug for the CAF. We're always looking for pilots. People think that's crazy, but we are. We need help. We need pilots. And it's not a situation where you walk in today and start flying tomorrow. We also need toilet cleaners and floor sweepers and grease wipers. And, we want to make sure that your interest in being there is to help us tell the story rather than to write DC-3 on your pilot certificate. So, it's a process that you go through, and it's different in different places, but it's a worthwhile. And if you believe in the mission, then sweeping the floor or twisting wrenches is just as important as driving the airplane. I'm the lucky guy that, got to sit in the left seat of that airplane for most of the trip, but I was a very, very, very small part of making, That's All Brother arrive in England safely. And it'd be remiss for me not to acknowledge the tens, if not hundreds of other people that worked on that airplane for years and raised money for years to bring it back to the status that it was at when we took it there. Before I let go, Lindsay showed a picture a couple minutes ago of the group, the entire group, and I think that was in Wiesbaden. That's an impressive group of people. It represents 15 organizations. Every one of those organizations raised somewhere between $150,000 and $250,000 independently to get those airplanes over there. And that's a tribute to the tenacity and the esprit de corps and the hard work that those people did. And I'm incredibly honored to be among that group and in that picture.
Hear, hear. I think everyone would agree with that, 100%, Doug. And I'm personally humbled by the commitment that everyone in that picture showed to make it all happen. But to end on a light note, does somebody have a funny story to tell that you haven't shared yet? Who's brave? I know.
How low do you want to go?
Remember, it's still a family show. Still a family show.
Heard somebody say Barry has all the best jokes.
I think I already told the way out of the seal soup. Yeah, no, that was just putrid. But I don't know if I want to tell that story again of who's going to be watching this. About, we were in Wiesbaden with the candy drop. Is that on the menu, guys, or should I save it for another
Absolutely.
time? So, one of the main things when we took that airplane across, our door was almost always open. I probably had 1,000 people go through that airplane over the course of the time we were gone. And in Wiesbaden, there's a guy that's not here on this thing, is John Goldenbaum, who's involved with the Flaybob Express, was good friends with the guy who's the CEO of Jelly Bellies. And originally, we had all had hopes of dropping candy at, somebody help me out here. What's the name of that place where we thought we might go?
Tempelhof, right?
Yeah, Tempelhof. So we all had visions of being able to drop candy at Tempelhof. Well, that didn't materialize. And it turned out that the opportunity arose in Wiesbaden. It's a US air base, and they said, go ahead and do it. So I think there was like 5 or 6 airplanes that had, a plane load of candy they're going to throw out the door or the window. And so I was sitting there, I go, you know what? I'm going to let my other crew fly this thing. I want to see what this looks like from the ground, because like somebody mentioned, there's like 40,000 people there to watch this. And what they had done is they had got a bunch of kids, and they had these yellow armbands on, and those are the kids that are going to be allowed to run out after the candy had dropped and pick up all this candy and come back with it. Well, so I was sitting there, and these guys are getting ready to go, and I'm looking at the crowd, and there was a US Army guy there, and I said, hey, help me pick a kid out. I'm going to throw a kid on the airplane. And so, yeah, how about that kid over there? He had a Planet Hollywood shirt on. So, okay, I'll go grab him. So I went over there, and he didn't speak much English, and the parents neither, but they figured out what I wanted to do. And they said, yeah, sure, go ahead and take my kid. Well, okay, maybe you'll get him back. Yeah, I don't know when, but we'll do our best to get him back. So I take this kid out, and so I throw him in the airplane, no English. We put him up in the jump seat up front, put a headset on him. That wasn't going to do much good. He didn't understand what was going on, and he was probably, I think he was 13, maybe 12, 13 years old. My son's sitting there, and he was part of this mess. And so off he goes. And, when for the people who are watching this, that, when you see airplanes flying in formation, it looks pretty cool, nice and smooth and everything else. It's not that way. It's especially when you're flying on a wing, it's constant motion. Both hands, both feet are working, trying to maintain your position, and the poor guys in the back are getting thrown around. Well, so I'm sitting there on my phone on the text. My son sends me a text, says, thanks, Dad. And the guy that was flying was Tim Manzo. And so he's flying left seat, and the jump seat's right behind him. And this kid starts tapping him on the back just as they're getting ready to do this candy drop. And he goes, oh, no, not now. I can't, I'm busy. And he goes, this kid keeps tapping on the back. Well, he stopped tapping on his back, and instead he puked on his back. And so it was pretty hilarious. For me on the ground, it was, at least, because I'm sitting here watching this message on the phone. And, of course, John Goldenbaum was up front. He's yelling back to my son, hey, get this kid out of here. My son's, he's all yours. You guys deal with it. And so at any rate, so it really all turned out well. But my thoughts looking back on that thing too is I hope, that kid, like I said, he's probably 13 years old. And I hope that the day comes when he goes, I wonder why it was I was chosen. How did this opportunity happen? What was this all about? I mean, I'm sure it's going to be pretty well ingrained in his head to what happened that day. But I hope he gets out and wants to do a little research someday and figure out how this opportunity happened. Why were these airplanes here? How was it I ended up in that airplane? And why were they here? What did they do? Who was this Gail Halverson guy? I hope that he learns who that guy was and spreads the word. Because one of my biggest fears in flying these airplanes is the up and coming generations. If they don't get educated, there won't be the interest. And part of our job is to try and see how much interest we can get these younger generations. And so I'll always take the opportunity to do that if it presented itself again. I've learned not to be the guy up front to get puked on them, but introducing people to the airplane is I think always going to be a goal of ours. it was humorous anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, with that, I think, that's a great takeaway. We would have, we'd be happy to take additional questions that folks have for the crew. We can pass those along via email and get your questions answered. Just because we're not live doesn't mean we can't be engaged, and because that's kind of the whole point, is to keep the engagement going and to look forward to what's next. So I'll toss it back over to Lindsay. And do you want to give us some illumination as to what the D-Day Squadron has in store, and the D-Day and the DC-3 Society?
Well, first off, Julie, thank you very much for taking and carving out your time. I know that you have a busy schedule as well, and running that magazine is among the many other things that you commit and participate in. You've been a big help to us. A huge thanks to all of the cast and crew on here for sharing and enlightening us with your amazing stories. I was really trying hard to pull together these images and the whole story and the compelling nature of what we all went through together. And that's the thing that is so interesting about our mission to Normandy and our commemorations in Berlin and the fun times we had in Italy, and then the venture back to the US. And we've all stuck very closely together, over the course of time. And we've gone back to doing events where we can. This year has been a bit difficult, but I just want to say to all the crew here, you all have made light of it, and you've adapted, you've shifted, you've pivoted, you've still made other flyovers and commemorations work so that we can continue to fulfill our mission and honoring, paying tribute, and commemorating the greatest generation that's ever lived. I will share from the D-Day Squadron side, which is very exciting. We've launched the Young Historians program. We just had a phone call today with several of our founding members of the Young Historians, and more news coming out with that. We have secured quite a few industry partners, and more coming in the new year in 2021. But these industry partners have taken a step further in supporting the D-Day Squadron, the entire D-Day Squadron, and those that are now becoming members of our DC-3 Society of enthusiasts, historians, aircraft owners, operators, students. We even have media that have joined up with us, pilots, mechanics, paratroopers. We want everybody to be involved as they can be involved. And so these affiliate partners have not only donated product and service, now they are offering discount product and service to our membership so that they can help to further create avenues to keep these aircraft airworthy, to support maintenance, to support any needs across our membership. So a lot of new things coming. We'll continue to do different flyover missions. But CJ, did you have anything else you wanted to share, or that can be shared?
Yes,
Okay.
it's officially not publicized, but in order to kind of work things through, I want to extend an amazing opportunity to the D-Day Squadron and the Mighty 15 and whomever would like to get involved. So to the original Tacoan, Pee Wee Martin, survived D-Day, Battle of Bastogne, dropped in Market Garden, Eagle's Nest. He turns 100 in April. We have a drop zone secured in his hometown. And what I'm asking for, and if Doug can, somehow I can talk to Doug, and I'm going to explain why I'm picking That's All Brother. Everyone's welcome. Everyone's invited. If you can forward your budget to me and you'd like to participate, we are actually going to be dropping paratroopers to the level perhaps of Normandy for the 75th. I know that sounds hard to believe, but in less than 4 days, I could not tell you all the external support we have. And Lindsay serendipitously gave me this opportunity to speak to you folks on a total, dropping, not on this, but it's amazing how God works. So what I'm asking for from Doug and That's All Brother, that is the preferred aircraft. Mine's D-Day doll because she did so much for me, but I'm not going to be selfish that way. That's All Brother, Doug, that is Pee Wee's favorite. And he's asking, or I shouldn't say he's asking, the group that's organizing his birthday party, which is with Round Canopy Parachuting Team, would like That's All Brother to participate. So if you don't mind considering that and then submitting a budget so I can somehow figure out how to get that done for us, he's number one, and then we build up from there. So I just wanted to extend that to everyone. We're in contact with the Golden Knights. If you have any questions, let me know. That's all moving up the chain very well. So it's going to be an incredible, unbelievable event. I can't mention certain people that are going to be involved because I can get in a little bit of trouble at this moment since it's not totally publicly announced. But I will privately. If you want to do another Zoom, I will give you all details, full disclosure, total transparent, so you can see how incredible it is going to be for Pee Wee.
Where's it going to happen at?
It's in Xenia, Ohio, and I believe the name of the actual, airfield is it's called Greenwood, but it's in Xenia, Ohio. They want to do it in Pee Wee's hometown.
So I'm quite certain. I mean, I'll coordinate with the rest of the D-Day crew or the That's All Brother crew, but I'm quite certain they want to participate. And I'll just tell you the rest of it. We were there for I think it was his 98th birthday because he wasn't going to be able to come to D-Day. So we flew That's All Brother up to his hometown for his 98th birthday, and it was a snowstorm on that day that we arrived there in a snowstorm.
I think Doug was telling you that. I just spoke with Doug Barber, and I'm so glad I did because I didn't realize that till he told me. So it's so important. I mean, I hate to say it like it's like so important that you're there for Pee Wee, not for, you know what I mean? It's just,
well,
he's
we would
gonna
love to
love it.
participate. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I'm excited. I mean, really. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
so
anyone
much,
else,
Cynthia.
you're very welcome.
No, that's awesome. No, that's exactly why we're here. We want to make sure that we can create other avenues and coordinate and collaborate on these very special commemorations. We don't know what 2020 is in store for us, so hearing this is very positive. And CJ, you've just been so wonderful, also helping our Young Historians program too. So thank you for helping introduce those great founding members to different World War II veterans. Very helpful.
My honor. And Lindsay, before I forget, in case we do another Zoom with everyone,
Yes.
so I can give you the full disclosure, I would like every one of those historians to take part because they asked me to be the documentarian for that. And I would love to give them the co-producer title on that to help elevate their, you know what I'm saying, to get them on the right.
Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Very helpful, very helpful. Well, folks, that is our broadcast. That is all I have. And I just wanted to say, and again, thank you to all of you for making this possible, carving out your time. Apologies that our live stream did not work. I figured out the problem. I know it now. We'll fix it for next time. We will have more live broadcasts that work, so don't worry. And one of the next ones that we are planning on doing that has been by request is a full-blown paratrooper broadcast. So y'all get ready. All right. So happy holidays to all of you. Merry Christmas, and whatever you may celebrate, enjoy with family, friends, relax, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the air.